Philippine entrepreneurs can well take advantage of a global readiness for the Asian brand. This is a compelling insight for the 19th National Retail Conference and Stores Asia Expo to be held in August 11 to 12. Experts say that the rise of the Asian middle class and the unfolding of the Asian myth among people of the West are among reasons behind this opportunity to grow distinct markets which go for the Asian brand. With the theme, The Roadmap to Retail Growth in the New Decade, the event will feature industry thought leaders and innovators who will share their expertise to an expected audience of more than 600 retail and business decision makers. Sectors which can be conquered by the Asian brand are said to include information technology, banking, and finance. Joining us here in the studio is Martin Roll, one of the world's most influential business conference speakers who will keynote the country's biggest retail conference. Good morning, sir. It is our honor to have you here in the program.
Good
I
morning.
want to ask you about your book, Asian Brand Strategy. What first is the Asian brand?
An Asian brand is a brand that is very true to its origin and doesn't copy what the Western brands have done. If you look at the Asian landscape today, there really aren't that many brands. So the brands that you're going to see moving forward are brands that are very true to the culture, that are distinctly Asian, and still with a certain blend, so even the global consumers would also buy into that promise.
And in that international world blend important to that Asian brand, you are saying that it is distinct in some sort of way. I'm going to ask you about later how Asian myth plays into this. But is that mix of European and American ingredients there important for that Asian brand?
Sometimes it is. It really depends on who you are and which industry you're in. If you look at an airline like Singapore Airlines, very, very strong, very Asian in its service aspect, in its way of running its business, its way of operating, not very Western characteristic.
That's right.
And on the other hand, you have a brand like Samsung, which has kind of globalized and want to become this kind of electronics brand for everyone, even though Samsung is now trying to be a little more Korean, because 20 years ago, Korean wasn't really known for that many things. It was very unknown to foreigners.
Yes.
And now Samsung wants to blend that Koreanness, a certain distinct Asian feeling into the brand. So it really depends on who you are. Moving forward, I think a lot of the Asian brands are going to be much more true to the origin, and they're not going to be very Western, because the kind of the shift of power to the East and people buying into the Asian history and Asian cultures and Asian taste and all that.
Okay, you said in your book that the rise of the Asian middle class and the unfolding of the Asian myth among people of the West are among reasons behind this opportunity. Asian myth, why is it there? Why is it also an important ingredient in this branding?
Because if you look at it, most of the brands that Asia moving forward are gonna set up and gonna operate, they're not gonna be first movers in most categories. You have seen fashion brands before, you have seen lifestyle brands, electronics brands. So if you're gonna make a mark in the global market, you're gonna be different. You're gonna differentiate, and part of that differentiation would be to say to the world, I have an Asian story to tell. I come from an Asian culture. I have a different taste. I have a different formula. We have a different way of doing service. Something that differentiates, so the so-called global consumer that used to buy Nike and is buying L'Oreal and is buying cars from Germany would say, wait a minute, there's this new brand that came up, and he or she has something distinctly different to offer, and I'll go along with that, because that brand is not going to be the first one necessarily in the category. We have seen mobile phones already. We all have electronics. We all have a car. We all have cosmetics. So if you're going to be an Asian company stepping up to build a brand and not just being an OEM, what is going to be your promise to the market? And that's why this discussion about Asianness and the roots, the origin, is so important for companies moving forward.
But can you give me an example of a company or a brand that has used the Asian myth as a powerful tool for its brand? Will you be able to give us an example?
I think there are several. I think Singapore Airlines is definitely one of them.
Okay.
There's another example of a smaller company called Banyan Tree that operates out of Singapore, without hotels in Singapore, by the way. And they have spread the wings throughout Asia now into the Western world. That is very much based on an Asian myth of hospitality, a certain exotic Asian service, the cleanliness, the smell of the hotel, the decor, the architecture. The entire package is distinctly Asian. You would never have seen that out of a Western operator. And I think that really makes a difference in the market. Not necessarily to become big and very bold and huge volume, but to carve out somehow a niche, a very distinct niche in the market that competes head-on with all the so-called global hospitality brands.
Okay, 2006, 4 years after you wrote this book, You're saying that most of your forecasts are happening already. Tell us some of those things that you see happening already for Asia.
I see a lot of brands coming out of Southeast Asia. I see a renewed focus on branding in China. 5 years ago, the Chinese didn't really know much about branding. I'm not sure they knew there was all about business strategies happening out of India. So if you make kind of a quick glimpse of the Asian landscape, you see brands, you see new brands are coming out of all the Asian countries. There's a new spirit in terms of building a brand. Not in terms of communication, not in terms of design and colors, but it comes from a true understanding that building a brand is business strategy, because it's going to operate much better results and much better profit for your business. By and large, this is about business.
I want to ask your assessment of how the Philippines is doing when it comes to branding. Our companies, our brands are branding as a country. Your assessment?
I think the assessment is the potential is here, but there's still a certain sense of complacency, because you have very strong brands in the home market. You have had the pen shoppers that operates out of Golden ABC. You have the SMs. You got the Jollibees. You got the Figaros. There are some excellent brands in the home market. But what we want to see moving forward are some of those brands going regional, because you can't just go global. I mean, going global is a big strategy, and it takes time.
Go region first.
Let's just go into the Asian region. There's much to do in Asia first. There's even be a certain sort of complacency in that area, and I think the next 5 years in the Philippines, I think the mindset is here. When I meet young entrepreneurs, when I meet young CEOs in their 30s and the 40s, the sons and the daughters that came back from overseas, they are all willing to step into the regional scene now and really making themselves heard. You have one huge advantage. You have a big home market, and everyone speaks English here. Trying to look at a lot of the other Asian countries, it's going to be much harder for the Koreans to take on Asia.
For those companies who are willing to take that mindset, how would they know if they have that potential to have a good brand? They have something in their hands, but they want to make it bigger. What makes a good brand? What would be their guidelines, their goals? So what would be the standard of calling themselves or admitting that they have a good brand in their hands?
First of all, you need to have great quality. You can't cut corners. You need to start at home. So it starts with good quality in terms
of
products and services.
Yes.
It starts with good distribution, it starts with good operations, and it's starting with great management and great people. You need to have the foundation of the house. Once you have all those things in place, and if you have the right mindset, you can step up your efforts, because you can ramp up your quality, you can broaden your distribution, and you can bring that promise to the market that we are different. And based on that promise, you're going to deliver on that promises. So what I'm after here, you can't just build an empty promise. It's very easy to say we're the best airline. It would be very easy for Philippine Airlines to say we're the best airline in the world, but you're also going to deliver on that promise. So you really need to go back to your operations, and you're going to look back at your management team. Are you capable, and are you ready for doing that? And then you're going to have a long-time horizon. It takes at least 3 to 5 years to build a strong brand just in the regional markets. Going global takes maybe another 10 or 20. There's no shortcuts to global markets today.
Okay, Mr. Martin Rowe, the keynote speaker for the 19th National Retail Conference and Stores Asian Expo, which will be held on August 11 to 12 at the SMX Convention Center. Thank you very much, sir, for talking to us. Of course, your book, Asian Brand Strategy. Thank you very much for talking to us, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll have the stock market update after the break. This is Mornings at 8.